Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about time. Now right now you don't need to write this title. As we go through the video you'll see when it is that you need to get your notebook and I'll show you what you need to write down. So we're going to be looking at two different clocks, two different methods of showing time and telling time. The first one is our analog clock. So this is the analog clock that you need to cut out. Make sure as we're going through all of these steps that you're pausing the video whenever you need to, since you will be having to cut and glue at different times. Please carefully watch the video to listen for the instructions as to what you need to cut, how you need to cut it, and where you need to glue it. So right now this is the clock that should be cut out, and let me point out a few things about the clock before we move on. So you can see these numbers right here at the center. These numbers are bigger and they're in bold. These represent our hours. And then we have these numbers on the outside that represent our minutes. Now, if you remember, try to think how many minutes are in an hour. If you said 60, you are correct. If we look at our clock right here, on the 12 starts the 0. And then we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and 60. Now notice here there is no 60, right? Because once you get to 60 minutes, you start an hour all over again, and the minutes start counting again from 0, again to the 5, 10, 15, and so on and so on. Alrighty, now you need to cut out the hands of the clock. These are the ones that point to the hours and the minutes. We're going to attach those with a little brad through the center. You're just going to poke it through, and then you're going to open the brad to secure it in place. This is a part where if you need some help, you might want to ask your parents just to make sure that we get it done correctly and that you don't hurt yourself when you're poking it through. All right, now that you have the hands attached, let's look at which one points to the hour and which one points to the minute. The shorter hand on the clock is our hour hand. You can tell that it's a little bit shorter. It doesn't quite reach the numbers. It doesn't quite touch them. And that's always how it is on any clock, whether it's a clock on the wall or the watches that you wear on your wrist. If they're analog, the shorter hand is always going to be the hour hand. So that means that the longer one is going to be our minute hand. If you notice, this one is almost touching the numbers right here on the line. Again, this is the same for any clock or watch as long as it's analog. The longer hand will be the minute hand and the shorter one will be the hour. Okay, now we're going to go on to our digital clock. So you're going to need to cut this out. You're cutting along the square, the outside square right here. Now, let me point out, you see these little dotted lines? We're going to be cutting those lines. But since they're right in the middle of the page, that makes it a little bit difficult. So let me show you the easiest way to do this. We're going to fold each side of the paper. Now notice this side I already folded it. What I did, I folded it right down the middle right here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your scissors and you're just going to cut through those two short parts of the line, and it'll cut all the way through the back. Again, on this part, you might want to ask your parents for help if you're not quite sure how to do it. So after you cut out the strips that have your hours and your minutes, you're going to weave them through here so that this part right here shows the time. Right there, I'm showing 6:25. This part of the strip shows the hour, and this part of the strip shows the minutes. Our colons separate it right in the middle. Think about like our decimal point that separates the dollars from the cents. The dollars are the whole and the cents are the part. Here our hour is the whole and our minutes are the part, because when it's a minute, it's only a part of an hour, not the whole thing. And the way you're going to use this is you can slide the strips up and down to change the hour and change the minute as necessary. This is the part where you need your notebook. As you can see, I labeled it at the top, digital clock. What you're going to do, you're going to put one thin line of glue on the back of here and another thin line of glue on the back of here. So those are the only two pieces that should be glued down to your notebook. The strips should be loose so that you can pull them up and down, But once we put those 2 strips of glue, it'll just hold it down so that it's in place and it's not loose all over and you don't lose it. Okay, remember again to pause the video as we go along when you need more time. On the other side, you're going to label it your analog clock. This should be the right side. The digital clock was on your left side of your notebook. This is your analog clock. Again, you're going to put a little dot of glue on the back of this and a little dot of glue on the back of that. You're only going to glue those 2 sides. This will make sure that you have your hands right here loose enough to move around, but that your analog clock stays in place. Once you're ready and you have those 2 glued in, we're going to do a couple of practices to see if you know how to set the time on an analog clock. Okay, so if you've glued both of them in, the first thing I want you to do is to set this time on your digital clock. It should say 7:15. Your hour is 7, your 15 is the minutes. Now what I want you to do for this portion of the video is that you're going to pause the video here and you're going to set your analog clock to show 7:15. Remember here that our hand for the hour is the short one and our hand for the minutes is the longer one. Now try to think back of what you know about telling time, what you can remember from your previous year that you learned in math. Where should the minute hand be and where should the hour hand be? When you feel like you've got it set correctly, you can press play again and then we'll check your answer. All right, by now you should have your analog clock set, so let's check your answer. This is what your clock should look like if you are at 7:15. So notice my hour hand is right here by the 7, but it's not exactly pointing to the 7. That's because when we're right at the hour, we're at 0, but we've already passed 15 minutes. My minute hand should be pointing right here at the 3, which in the minutes it represents 15. Since we've already passed a little bit past the hour, my hour hand went a little bit past the 7 too. It's not exactly on the 7 because it's not 7 o'clock, it's 7:15. So it should be right past the 7. All right, now let's set your digital clock to 5:05. Think about what you just saw right now on this previous clock. When it was 15 minutes after, it was just slightly after, right? But now we're talking about 5:05. It's only 5 minutes after the hour. So again, pause your video, set your analog clock, and when you think you've got it ready, then you can press play to check your answer. All right, let's check your answer. Your clock should look like this. My minute hand is pointing to the 5 minutes, which is right at the 1. My hour hand is pointing at the 5. Now this time, notice my hour hand is pretty much right on the 5 because we've only passed 5 minutes. That's not a whole lot past the hour, so my hour hand is still pretty close to the 5, right on it. All right, now set your digital clock for 4:40. Since we know that there are 60 minutes in an hour, we should know that half an hour is 30 minutes. So now we're talking about 4:40. That's a little bit past the half hour because 40 is a little bit more than 30. So again, think about where your hour hand should be. Think about where your minute hand should be. Pause the video, set your clock, and when you're ready, we can check your answer. All right, let's check your answer. Your clock should look like this. Our hour hand, this is 4 o'clock, this is 5 o'clock. Now it shouldn't be too close to the 5 because we're still talking about 4:40, but it should be a little bit past the middle. Our minute hand is at the 40 minutes. Now notice this is right down the middle, 30 minutes right here. I'm closer to the next hour than I am to the one I just came from. So my hour hand, this is why my hour hand is a little bit past the middle, a little bit closer to the 5, but not quite there yet. Now let's put 3:55. 3:55, that's pretty close to 4 o'clock because I know there's 60 minutes in an hour. So again, think about where your hour hand should be. Think about where your minute hand should be. Pause the video, set your clock, and when you're ready, let's check your answer. All right, let's go ahead and check. Your clock should look like this. Notice again, 55. Well, I only have 5 more minutes to go to get to the next hour. Since it's 3:55, you should be able to see that right here, my hour hand is almost pointing to the 4, but not quite, because it's almost 4 o'clock, but not quite yet. We still have 5 minutes to go, so it shouldn't be pointing right at the 4. It also shouldn't be pointing right at the 3, because it's not 3 o'clock anymore. It's almost 4 o'clock. All right, last one. Let's do 12:30. 30 minutes, that's right in the middle. Think about where you need your hands, set your clock, pause the video, and resume play once you're ready to check. All right, let's check. 12:30. My minute hand is right at the 30 minutes, and my hour hand is just a little bit after 12, because it's not 12 o'clock anymore, it's 12:30. It's right in the middle between 12 and 1. After we pass the 12 o'clock hour, once the minute hand goes all the way around, we start over at 1. Right now it's halfway through, so my hour hand should be halfway through as well. All right, so I hope you had some good practices. I hope you got most of them correct. And if not, you should have refreshed your memory on how to set the clock. Make sure to answer your reflection question and be ready to use both of these clocks in class. Bye.